Our scripture this morning is from the book of John, chapter 15. Jesus is speaking. As God has loved me, so I have loved you. Live on in my love. And you will live on in my love if you keep my commandments, just as I live on in God's love and have kept God's commandments. I tell you all this, that my joy may be yours, and your joy may be complete. This is my commandment. Love one another as I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. And you are my friends, if you do what I command you. I no longer speak of you as subordinates, because a subordinate doesn't know a superior's business. Instead, I call you friends, because I have made known to you everything I have learned from God. It was not you who chose me. It was I who chose you to go forth and bear fruit. Your fruit must endure, so that whatever you ask of God in my name, God will give you. This command I give you, that you love one another. Words to consider.
A long time ago, when I first started doing this gig, my primary hope was that the sermons would be inspirational and popular, not necessarily in that order, but I wanted to get good reviews on them. What I realized over the years is that religion can be helpful or hurtful, and when it's hurtful, it's so destructive that it's really critical to teach religion in a way that doesn't turn cruel, doesn't turn superstitious. The problem we all confront with religion is that we all start off as children, right? That's the only place to start. Which means before your rational mind develops, you've already got all kinds of things deep down inside, some of which are unconscious, that affect the truths that you can take in or not. Little things like, where did the world come from? It's like 9:30 at night, you're trying to get you to go to sleep, so you say God made it. You're just trying not to go insane. But what happens if, as an adult, that child can't take in science because he's got a character, this creator, that he's got to plug in everything? What happens when a child has been taught that God likes people like him or her better than everyone else? The child is taught to think of Jesus as white, heterosexual, American, of course. Pro-guns, pro-flag. What happens when the religion that you're taught as a child, that you're getting your identity from, you're getting your sense of value from, short circuits with the real world? I would suggest that's happening all over the place. And there's some very decent and beautiful people who are caught in poisonous religion that has been tearing the world apart for a long, long time. I understand why people want to say all religion is bad. We got a real low batting average. I get it. But I think there's profound work that's being done that no other art can do, going deep, deep inside like that. Jesus said that you have to put new wine in new wineskins. I think what he was saying is that when you learn new things about the world, it's okay to be smart. But it's okay to learn new truths about the world. The Bible is poetry. A lot of it's beautiful, a lot of it is cruel. A lot of it's insane in the current context. It wasn't in the day necessarily that it was written. But Jesus was saying, you're the one that has a beating human heart. You're the one that can discern the difference between love and hate. And so you're the one that has to decide that the new wine isn't appropriate in old wineskins, which makes fundamentalism impossible. Fundamentalism is a number one heresy because it outlaws growth. It outlaws new insights. It's all root, no blossom, no fruit. And Jesus, time and time again, says the point is to produce this fruit. The fruit, obviously, is love. But love includes all of the virtues. So he's not just talking about something that fits on a Hallmark card. He also said you have to be born again. And I think what that means is you have to revisit your foundation. That the values and truths you were taught as a child were appropriate bridges to get where you are now. But those contexts will keep you from being loving and truthful if you don't go back and restore them, refurbish them. To be born again means to go back to your foundations. This is very difficult. We're all taught stories about the world. We find stories that explain things. And we fall in love with those stories. The atonement, salvation, heaven, hell, reincarnation. You put whatever list of hypothetical possible things to explain the world. But that's never your foundation. Your foundation is the experience that you're having in your heart, in your mind. And so the most radical thing you can do is to go into that experience without theories, without hypothetical explanations, and go in and see what is happening in your heart. To not run from the pain, not to explain the pain, but to go into it and see if it's trying to teach you something. I believe that Jesus was the example of what a universal human being looks like. I think a whole lot of the story is mythic. Right? The people that wrote it weren't there. The timing is wrong when you date the documents, which is really bad for history, but it's really wonderful for a mystic. Jesus represents what a human being is that has blossomed. So is Buddha. So to follow Jesus in this sense, in the mystical sense, means to become who you truly are. To stop trying to be something else, but to go into what you truly are. To look at the generative principles of your very being and begin to live out of that. Jesus, I believe, does not want you to be a servant. I think that's the punchline of our verse today. After all this time, Jesus says one of the most revolutionary things in any scripture in the world. I no longer call you my servants, I call you my friends. Do you understand how radical that is? Do you understand how loving that is? You get to graduate. You're not eternally in school. You get to be the adult in the room. What else would a lover of your soul want for you? But for you to grow and to learn and to manifest. It's really hard to believe it. When we did the Sophia passages, people got excited about Sophia. But the point is, you are Sophia. You are the cosmic word made flesh. And there is wisdom within you that you're not going to find in any book or any sermon. I'm not excluded from that. It's not going to come from outside of you. That's part of the mystical meaning of the virgin birth. It's not some smarty pants outside of you that's going to find your soul. And you'll learn more from what's happening inside you than any college, university, dogma, book, anything. So I believe Jesus doesn't want to be our cosmic boss. I believe Jesus wants to be the lover of our souls, the cultivator of our souls, that voice that calls you to greatness when you've given up on yourself. The stories of religion are mythic, which means they're putting a human face on the cosmic process. Now that's really bad for childish, our childish wishes to make everything really simple and everything has to be people. But in terms of the day you're going to live today and tomorrow and the next day, to know there is something that is so close to you that it's not really even outside of you, it's inside of you. It's in every person you meet. And it's always teaching, always guiding. That's what the Sophia mysticism was all about, to set you free from the religion you began with. Thank God there's religion to be a cradle. Thank God there's religion to be a nest. But you have wings. You were made for the sky. And so to turn the nest into a prison is the worst thing religion can do. Have you ever noticed, and this is the second point, it would have been seamless if I hadn't said that. Maybe. Have you ever noticed in the Christmas stories are trying to help you go through this rebirth. Have you ever noticed the backdrop for the story is really bleak? It's dark, it's cold, they're hunted. And the paradox that I think is being said is that often this rebirth of the soul, which can mean anything you want it to mean, but it's like the ego's going to have to die, or at least get cracked open, and some deeper part of you is going to be born. But that's going to come out of what mystics call the dark night of the soul, which may feel like death, which may feel like failure, which may feel like betrayal. It's when the ego can't work at all anymore that something deeper than that begins to speak. And you realize that what you thought was in your best interest has been a prison all along. In Hinduism, there's a parable about somebody, the ego, the symbol for that is the little shack, little house hut kind of thing. And somebody's given a baby elephant that's put inside this little hut, which is really wonderful until the elephant starts to grow. Ultimately, the little hut has to go. The little context, the little wineskins, the ego, the little life that we're content living is destroyed by the symbols of religion, if it's good religion. If it's bad religion, it fortifies them. But good religions set you free when you don't want to be free. It helps you understand life in ways that you don't want to look at and see. Because the purpose of religion is not to understand your suffering, but to transform it into wisdom, into compassion. If you're not suffering currently, great. You don't have to cause suffering to become wise. Suffering will look you up. It has your address. It knows where you live. So enjoy today. But when that day comes, when it feels like things have caved in on you, listen. Step out of the stories that you're using to explain why that's happening. You did this, and so you're being punished, or you did that, so you're being thwarted. And just look at what's there. Look at what's blossoming out of that pain. you will discover that you are wisdom incarnate. You don't need a teacher. Obviously, that's my job, and I love it, and I think it can be helpful sometimes, but only if it leads you to your own wisdom. If I do not lead you there, I've betrayed you. Here's the third point and final point. I believe Jesus, when it says, go tell it on the mountain, go everywhere, spread this word. He wasn't saying go around and talk about Jesus all the time. I've transcended my ego, so go talk about me everywhere. See, that would be the ego. Jesus is calling us to the same kind of love that he had for the world, which is radical and universal. Radical means it's more important than your country, it's more important than the economy, it's more important than popularity. It's your roots. And universal means there's no scapegoats. Nobody's left outside of it. So when there's a crisis and people say, choose sides. Which side are you on? Universal love goes deeper than that. If waves could think in the ocean, waves in the ocean could think, they would see themselves rising and dying like we do. But if waves could meditate, they would discover that the deeper they go inside themselves, the more it's the common ocean. If you go deep enough within yourself, you will discover the common life, which is what Buddha and Jesus are trying to say. And when they talk about love, they're talking about a larger life and a larger happiness. In our passage today, Jesus says, I'm coming that your joy may be full, complete. He said, no one gives a greater expression of love than someone who lays their life down for another person. That's been turned into something morbid. But the truth is, that's our life. We're born, we play, we enjoy, we do all of that, and at some point we realize it all has to go back again. When we realize we can turn that into a joyful gift, then the whole thing becomes a song. When you first start experimenting with universal love, it's probably the loneliest thing you'll ever do. Because everybody wants you on their side. Right? They want you to be a good American, a good Christian, a good ex. At first, it's very lonely to step out of that. But ultimately, universality includes everything. And you realize there is no copyright on universality. No religion owns it. No philosophy owns it. So to realize that what you're being called to is a deeper joy, a deeper truth, is very liberating. So let me run through this real fast one last time. I think we all have a problem in religion in that we start off as children. We don't want to lose the joy. We don't want to lose the childlike curiosity. We want that our whole lives. But we have to outgrow the context we learn because they've been vastly simplified for us. We can learn more from just listening to what's happening within us or listening to another person without theories, without hypothetical truths, just being present in the moment with another person or in full awareness of yourself. Tells you that these symbols are not intended to be understood on their own. These are midwives to give birth to your greater self. The Christmas is the story of how that birth takes place. And the star of the story is not just Jesus, it's you and me. But we have to learn that Jesus wants us not as servants, but as friends. Not as subordinates, but as equals. Because in universal love, there is no hierarchy of power. So Jesus doesn't want to be your cosmic boss. I think he's saying he wants to be the lover of your soul. Well, that's my understanding of the text. We'll take a moment for you to contemplate your own.